Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor Woodbury. I'm with MFA. I'm a gallery assistant, and I'd like to introduce our guest artist today, Leslie Nolan. Leslie Nolan is an American contemporary painter best known for her emotionally charged figurative artworks. Born in Portland, Oregon, she's now based near Washington, D.C. She creates raw, expressionistic portraits that reflect internal conflict, power, and vulnerability. Her signature aesthetic combines bold brushwork, gestural lines, and impasto surfaces, resulting in intense, psychologically complex figures caught between appearance and reality. So thank you, Leslie, for joining us today.
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Will Scott. He's a art historian and he bridges the gap between artists and the public. So thank you, Will.
All right. Thank you, Eleanor. And for everybody who watches this and listens to it, this is Eleanor's first time as our moderator. I appreciate you stepping up and stepping into this role that was previously handled by Marissa Evangelista, who did a wonderful job and was a great model for what you're about to begin. And Leslie, thanks to you for agreeing to subject yourself to this. And there's nothing to be nervous about. We're doing this to promote you as an artist who was juried into the show and given a Juror's Choice Award, which we didn't know when we selected you, because I have been impressed by the work that you've exhibited in a couple of previous shows, and particularly one of the pieces that we're going to talk about today, for which you received the Juror's Choice. So thank you for participating. The thing that struck me about your piece called Connor, Leslie, it really did resonate with me the first time that I saw it and walked around through the gallery, because the theme of the show, the call, was centered around the idea that color is a powerful tool for the artist. And it struck me that there was a great deal of force, emotional and visual force in this image. So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose the colors? And your paint application is very energetic as well. And the pose for this figure, what you're trying to convey, particularly in your use of color.
Well, I'm going to start with the last, and that's the pose, because I do primarily figurative painting these days, and I often use my husband as a model. Now, he doesn't look anything like that, but I like to, I had this 48 by 36 canvas, and I wanted to use the whole canvas for a figure. And it's kind of an odd shape unless you're doing a vertical for a figure. So I just asked him to pose sitting down with his legs spread wide. The idea was the arms and legs would take up the space and give some liveliness to the shape of the rectangle. So he did that, and I took a couple of photos of him. And then I had decided on the color palette in general. So it was black and green, I think. I've forgotten. But anyway, the colors were a process of trying one thing and then trying another and then covering it with another and changing. So there's no drama there, except one time, a long time ago, somebody gave me some advice about a painting. And he said, make sure your paintings, for putting into group shows and exhibitions and things like that, make sure that your painting stands out from across the room. And that's about the best advice I've ever gotten. And there are a lot of ways to do that: shape, design. But for me, it's the color is the big standout from across the room. So but I hadn't expected it to be this colorful. But once I got rocking and rolling, trying various things, I became enamored of the yellow, and everything was going great. It was looking good. And then I decided I wanted the background was kind of boring, and I don't like boring things. I like to have things that are energizing and simulate movement and are interesting. And so I just off the cuff decided to put a yellow mark in there. I also had a yellow mark under his seat, where he's sitting on the stool, and that didn't work at all. But so I continued with the yellow, and then so I ended up with this lovely cruciform shape, which separated the four corners. And that's another thing I learned years ago, was to have each corner have a different shape. So I have four corners with different shapes. And that, with the color combination, the blue and the yellow, the whole piece just, it made itself, really. I didn't even have to think about it. I was just rocking and rolling. So it was a happy end to a mixed process.
Is that the typical sort of process that you follow? You don't have a specific uh, end result that you're trying to achieve, but it's more of a process flow kind of thing like that?
It's instinctive, it's totally instinctual, but I always have an idea to begin with, and I tend to sketch a charcoal very loose of the figure that I want on the painting, on the canvas first, just in charcoal, an outline, and then I'll outline it in paint so that I can make sure I see it. And then I move from there. But I always have an idea of where I want the figure, and I try to move it to one side or the other, low or high, and have it be different things. Because particularly when it's in a group of other paintings, you don't want them all looking exactly the same in terms of posing. But I do use my husband a lot, honey, can you come over here and put your hand up here, or, and of course he's so wonderful to do that.
Well, that is great. 'Cause my wife is not enamored of being a model for my photographs, which I suppose is a little more understandable, not from my point of view, but trying to put myself into her shoes because I'm a photographer. So,
Uh-huh.
people are going to, I'm not going to try and hide who she is. And that's what she's
Right,
afraid of,
right.
that her hair won't be right or,
Well,
something
you know
like
what? I started out with photography uh, way back in the 70s when I took a class at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center on crime scene photography.
that. Oh,
You had to get everything in
yes.
the
Yeah.
proper focus. So I posed a friend of mine dead on the floor with a knife in the front and the blood over here. And it all had to be in focus.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
and then when I served abroad for the Foreign Service, I used to photograph Indians and people, indigenous people and all that. But then later I decided I wanted to get into painting. So, but the photography was very helpful. You've got that format,
Sure. Yep. Yep.
you have to crop it properly. And I used to have a development studio in my bathroom
Yeah.
in
I had one in
Columbia.
graduate school.
Yeah. So
Um,
that I think that's great training for painting.
you know, it's interesting. A couple of the things that you said, like the corners, I'm after I retired, I've concentrated most of my creative energies on photography and taken very few formal courses, but the one really serious like master class in creative photography that I took, the guy that taught that class was very insistent. Every corner has to mean something.
Yes,
And so don't ever think that you've finished with a photograph until you've really thought about what's happening in each corner.
absolutely right. It's not just the figure,
Yeah,
it's the setting.
yeah. And the other one other like a day-long seminar I went to was about landscape by a very successful internationally known landscape photographer. And he said something that resonated with what you said about your painting is never leave a site where you're photographing without turning around and looking at what's behind you. Sometimes that's the most important or most significant thing, you
Uh-huh.
know? And
That's
so
interesting.
yeah, so, but back to your process.
Mhm.
Are you telling me that that yellow is not a pure yellow, that there's actually other paint colors beneath it?
Yeah. Yes.
So how do you how do you decide that, okay, that color is not just right, so I want to put yellow over it? We're talking about the power of color. So how are you making those selections or decisions?
Well, then you have to, once you've, I don't know, it's just drama, dynamics, excessive drama, drama queen here. But I think that the key thing about the yellow is that yellow doesn't cover well. Yellow as a painter is a real troublesome color because it tends to be very transparent.
Mhm.
So whatever is underneath it, and if you see the painting in person, you can see that the yellow over the blue makes a little bit of a
Green,
green,
yeah. Oh, I
which
can
is
see it
kind of
even in,
exciting
yeah,
on
I
the
can see it in
edges.
the image on the screen, and you definitely see it in person.
It's a
Definitely.
little, it's kind of a hint. But if you
Mhm.
want, so if you want it to be yellow, 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 which I don't, but if you did, you would put white down first, or you would mix white into the yellow, and then the yellow wouldn't be so dramatic. So yellow is a real problem for a painter, personally. That's what I think. So I tend not to use it a lot.
Hmm.
So this was very bold of me to
Yeah, well,
try
good.
this, but it worked.
Well, you need to keep on like that because this is, I think, a very powerful painting. But I'm an art historian. I was trained as a historian of American art, and I can't escape that even when I try. And the
Mhm.
way this figure, the way it's painted, and the way you talked about its evolution, its creation, sounds like Willem de Kooning's creation
Oh,
of the series of women.
uh-huh.
Are you
Well, I love de
familiar?
Kooning. I mean, I don't paint like him, but I wish I did. But
Well, the
I have several of his books here in my studio, and often I go through them to see his flesh colors, the whites, all of that.
the process you described, if you've read the text in those books, is really the way he worked in the studio. You know, he started out, because of his contemporaries and their influence, he would take pieces of newspapers and magazines and paint over them. And
Uh-huh.
then, in the same way that you described, well, maybe I don't want to remove this color, but I want to alter this color by painting another pigment over the
Hmm.
top of it and then even smearing them around. So here's my question with my art historian's hat on. Do you think that your expressive approach to color and paint application owes anything to your admiration or interest in artists like de Kooning?
Yes, yes, yes. I would say, well, when I first came to the Washington, D.C. area from Portland, Oregon, uh, I made a stop at the Phillips collection. And I'll never forget this moment. They had a Matisse, whom I'd never seen before. And it was the Egyptian curtain, a uh, vertical piece.
Yeah, I know it.
When you first walk in, and I was just blown away by that. So after that trip, after the visit to the museum, I went home, I bought some cardboard or canvas or something, and I tried to emulate that painting from a little postcard I bought in the gift shop.
Yeah.
And then I gave it to a friend. But that was the first thing I fell in love with. Then I fell in love with the Diebenkorns. But my big influences are de Kooning, Joan Brown from the San Francisco Bay Area School. And of course, I love, love, love Baselitz.
Oh,
I think those are the biggies.
uh-huh. Well, it's interesting that you are so openly emphasizing and acknowledging those artists and their influence, because so many artists today want to hide. They don't know, perhaps, or they want to hide what they do owe to other artists.
Mm.
You know, this emphasis on your uniqueness, your originality, it's become so overwhelming. So you do you see yourself as part of the legacy of those artists that you're continuing or molding, you know, following in their footsteps in any way?
I'm not following in their footsteps, but I will say this. Anyone that says they have never been influenced by what they see, what they hear, what they read, they're lying. Because
Okay.
a human being is 100% influenced by the people he's surrounded with, by the people they read, by their visual sight. So that A can't be true and B shouldn't be true because we build on the past. I mean, without
Yeah.
Rubens and Goya, you know, we wouldn't exist here. We wouldn't be painting what we are painting. I wouldn't be doing figures.
Right. It is so refreshing to me to hear you say that. I think we're probably of the basically the same generation. And when I was in graduate school, my mentor was a leading historian of the history of photography, and particularly Alfred Stieglitz, if you're
Oh
familiar.
yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. And so as a photographer, many, many times somebody, I'll show them a piece of mine or they'll see it in an exhibit and they'll say, "Oh, you must admire Ansel Adams." Well, I do, but I wasn't thinking of Ansel Adams when I did this. But I can't escape the fact that he and Stieglitz and George O'Keeffe and all these other people are in my head. It's there.
Of
Can't
course.
deny it.
And you know, everything you see on TV, everything you see, movies, I mean, everything surrounding you, you're influenced by.
Yeah.
It's impossible to escape unless you live in a cave.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've gotten, I think, at the essence of this image and your process and your whole sort of the basics of your creative approach. But this, I'm going to do something that I haven't done very often because it's unusual that I've interviewed somebody, talked with somebody with your very interesting background. And it's so different from my concept of being an artist that I'd like you to share some of that with us. How did you get from the kind of highly specialized, and it sounds like even possibly dangerous work for the government to becoming a painter? How'd that happen?
You know, it wasn't such a leap, really, because when I was young, I always liked to paint and draw. My brother gave me a set of oils when I was 10 or 12. So I always liked to do that. But I don't know, I was early on just interested in seeing the world. So I ended up going to the University of Madrid from in undergrad school for a while. And there I went to the Prado Museum.
Oh,
Hello, Goya,
yeah,
Velázquez, Murillo. And then I ended up joining the Foreign Service. But before I got into the Foreign Service with State Department and the U.S. Information Agency, I decided to, you know, I was waiting for the oral exam. I just signed up with CIA. You know, they recruited me right after I got out of college, and I said, okay, I'll go overseas with them. But
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
they were kind of a boys' club, so
Oh, yeah,
so anyway, I ended up being a special agent, and that was very creative because you're interviewing people. You have to figure, it's like a maze. You have to figure out things and investigate, and you have to be fearless and you have to be creative in how you get to the truth
yeah,
in a humane way. And So it's not that different from art. But then once I retired, but even before I retired, I started taking classes and workshops in the area in the evening. By then, my boys were in high school and college, so it was not a big deal for me to be, doing that. So then I just said, okay, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, well, that's great that you could make the transition, and the way you talked about it, I think was very enlightening to me about how you really see them as intertwined creative processes. But I have a couple of sort of specific nitpicky kind of questions. When you
Uh-oh.
went when you went to the University of Madrid, did you graduate from the University of Madrid?
No, sir, I did not. It was a summer session on the civilization and culture of Spanish through the Portland State University. So
Oh,
it was a study abroad
yeah,
program.
study abroad program. Were
Yeah.
you fluent in Spanish, and did they teach the classes in
Claro que
Spanish?
sí, por supuesto.
Uh, 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 yo poco poco.
Poco. But I was a French major, so.
Oh yeah, I'm terrible at languages. It's amazing I could even say that to you. Um, and when you were in Madrid, was the Thyssen-Bornemisza collection down the street, and were you able to go from the Prado? The Thyssen family in Germany that built so many armaments for World War I and World War II. One of the members of the family was an art aficionado who married into an aristocratic family. I think they were Swiss, the Bornemises.
Ah.
And they have, if you go back to Madrid, when you go to the Prado, you just go about 2 blocks farther down the boulevard,
Ah.
and the Thyssen-Bornemisza is maybe the greatest private art collection in the world that I've ever seen.
I'm sorry to have missed that, but I've been to Madrid several times working at the embassy and then just on vacation
Did you
many
make it to
times.
the Reina Sofia?
Yes, I love
Yeah,
that. Love
yeah,
it, love it, love it, love
yeah,
it, love
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that I mean, it's fascinating talking to you, and I'd love to learn more about your CIA experience if you could talk about it.
Not really.
Yeah, I know. I know. We
But
have a lot of friends.
I will say CIA, you come from a small town, you get to Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden you're told to lie.
Yeah.
I mean, this is huge.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
huge.
yeah,
It's a whole different way of the way you were brought up. Because
yeah.
my father was a police captain. I never lied to my father. And then all of a sudden you
That's your
have to tell
training. Yeah,
people, oh, where do you work? Oh, I work at the Department of the Army and the Pentagon, you know.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then overseas, it's just crazy. It's
yeah,
insane. And it's hiding and you have to worry about everybody and it really enters so there's a lot that's hidden. And I'm not the only one that has it. Every human being on earth has things that they hide,
yeah,
maybe are ashamed of. And I think that's the most important thing about my work because it's not about a portrait of people, it's about how they feel and the emotions. And so it's general.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a wonderful way to end our conversation. But I hope I'll see you maybe at the closing reception of the exhibition, or at other exhibitions that you are included in. But it's been wonderful talking to you, and I thank you for agreeing to do that.
It was great. Thanks so much, Will.